Hello and welcome everyone. We're going to go ahead and give everyone a few seconds to load into our chat for today. All right, well, we are so glad that you're able to join us today for our 49er industry chat. Again, welcome to everyone. My name is Cynthia Saavedra and I'm a member of the University Relations team at Long Beach State. Before we begin, I want to remind you that this session is being recorded and we will be available on demand, and that's on our website, csulb.edu/alumni. We welcome questions throughout the chat and encourage you to submit those using the Q&A box located at the bottom of your screen. And now I'd like to introduce our moderator for today's chat. Vince Calles graduated in 2013 with a degree in philosophy and currently serves as a member of the CSULB Alumni Council. So Vince, I'll go ahead and kick it off to you.
Thank you, Cynthia. I'm excited. Man, we've had a lot of wait for this particular speaker here. And, without further ado, I want to just mention a little bit more about Frank. So two-time CSULB alum. He earned a bachelor's in accountancy and came back to Cal State Long Beach, and he did his master's in public administration. He has more than 25 years experience as a county employee. And, he was unanimously appointed by the county executive officer. That's his position, county executive officer, by the Orange County Board of Supervisors back in 2015. So Frank joined the county as a staff accountant. So we talk about working your way up. He previously served as the county's chief financial officer. In collaboration with the executive management and the Board of Supervisors, he was responsible and still is for the county's $5.6 billion, 23 department, 18,000 position budget. Yeah, he's held positions in the private industry, higher education, before embarking upon his county career. And the cool part too is that, both Frank and his wife are Cal State Long Beach alum. And without further ado, I want to welcome Mr. Frank Kim.
Well, thank you very much for that warm introduction. It's really an honor to be able to participate in the industry chat. And I'm so happy to represent not only the county, but representing the county as a former 49er. My wife and I both got degrees in accounting. In fact, in my senior year, that was the year that the current business building was finally constructed. So I was able to take, I think, my final year of classes in that facility. So when I visited a couple of months ago, it was nice to see all the development that's happened on our campus, and I couldn't be more proud of our university. So as a little bit of background for myself, I'll cover my history with the university, the things that I found to be incredibly valuable to me in my career. We'll talk a little bit about what it means to be an accountant in not only the private sector, but within a government setting, and how that's really helped me as a good base to grow into the position that I have today. In the time that I came to the university back in 1987, I was really just kind of a young kid out of high school, and I really wanted to embrace everything that I had an opportunity to participate in. I was very lucky in that I was able to have a good part-time job, and I lived part of the time on campus and also in apartments surrounding the university, but it was my first time away from home. And in the university setting, I participated in the Accounting Society. I was in Beta Alpha Psi, Grades Appeal Committee, the Associated Students Business Organizational Council. I tutored for the Minority Business Program. I threw myself into every volunteer committee and assignment that I could find. And what I really enjoyed about that was in all of those different endeavors, I was able to build relationships. And many of those relationships I still hold today. I was able to develop my skill set in terms of working with people not only from different cultural backgrounds, but different demographics in terms of age, working with professors, with industry professionals. And I built all of that experience, which I think really helped me, because as a fairly shy kid coming out of high school, I think one of the things that is really important in terms of your professional career is to be able to communicate well, not only in writing, but also in interpersonal dialogue, in public speaking. And those are things that you can only build through experience. So in all these different opportunities that I had at the university, I was able to grow that skill. And perhaps I didn't even know that I was doing that, but in that experience, I think I was able to come out of my shell and really maximize, or at least improve the abilities and skill sets that that I had coming into the university.
Yeah, and Frank, I love the fact that you mentioned getting really involved in the programs and the clubs that the university offers, because the university right now kind of has a reputation of a commuter school where you get the students that come in and then they take their class and they got to go back out and work or do other things. So I love that fact that you're bringing that up of how important it is. What about for those alumni that weren't able to take full advantage of the university's resources? What kind of tips can you give them now that they're out in the real world, and as far as networking and developing those skills in public speaking and emotional intelligence, things like that?
I think it's about balance, right? So at the time, through most of my university career, I was working around 20 hours a week and then taking a full class load. But I always felt that I was too busy, that I never had enough time. But I think you and I were chatting before this industry chat began, that looking back to the college years, I never had so much free time in my life. I just didn't understand it at that time. So perspective is really important. So what I would say is, for those individuals that are having to commute and they don't have as much free time on campus to be able to engage in those activities, I think it's also looking at what you're doing outside of university. So if you commute, it generally means that you're working part-time, right? And so you can pursue those same type of opportunities, hopefully through your employer, whether you are engaging in different committees or activities that occur through your work, or you're doing it through the activities that are available on campus. I know that at the time when I was on campus, we held some meetings in the evenings because we did have a lot of individuals that commuted and timing was a challenge. So there are opportunities for you still to engage and encourage perhaps participation in those activities where the times are more compatible for people that have a commuter schedule. But I think it's the mindset of always participating and engaging in every opportunity that you can to grow yourself as a human being. Because I think at that time when you're in college, whether you're straight out of college, of high school, or you're coming back into university from having been out in the professional workforce, there is always some activity that you can engage in to further broaden your skill set and experience base.
Great answer. What was it about Cal State Long Beach that, all right, you came in as an undergrad and you're like, you know what, I want to come back again and get my master's here?
Well, what was interesting was when I graduated with a degree in accounting, I went to work for a large public accounting firm. At the time, they no longer exist, but I went to work for Arthur Andersen, who at the time was one of the big 6 accounting firms.
Yeah.
And the challenge for me there was when I worked there, I immediately went from really studying and working 40 to 45 hours a week maybe, which I thought at the time was a lot, to going and working 60 hours a week and then commuting to downtown LA, which costs you an hour each way, right? So when I lived in that kind of lifestyle, I immediately felt underprepared, me kind of personally, from an emotional perspective, that immediately I started to lose connection with my friends, my personal activities that I enjoyed, whether it was surfing, hiking, snowboarding. I was a very engaged outdoor enthusiast, but when you're working in the office all day and then on weekends, you start losing that connection. And I felt that it was taking something away from me that I wasn't willing to sacrifice. So, perhaps I was a millennial before the millennials came up, but after a short time working in that environment, I resigned. And I remember that discussion with my partner at the time, and the partner in the firm said, "Frank, you've only been here a short time. Why do you want to resign?" And I said, "Look, I'm looking at your life and the way that our senior managers and partners are and their work-life balance. And I'm not certain that that's something that I'm prepared to commit my life to. And while I'm still young in my career, I want to go back and increase my educational experience. And I might want to pursue something a little bit different in my career, because I did have a thought that if I stayed too long in the professional path and I, take on either a mortgage or a larger apartment lease and buy a new car, that I could never go back to school. So I went back and I came back to Long Beach State to pursue a master's in public administration, because I've always had an interest in participating in the public sector, because I felt as though that is something where I can feel like I'm a part of the community. When I think about the public sector, we build the roads, we manage the airport, we provide a social safety net. Those are all things that are necessary for an efficient and appropriate kind of infrastructure for society to thrive in. And I wanted to be a part of something that was bigger than me. So I came back and I was able to complete my degree, and then I went to work for the County of Orange, and it's been an exciting ride ever since.
It's amazing because, it takes a lot of courage to be able to make a move like that, a decision to say, you know what, I'm not happy where I am. There's other things that are important besides the position and income. And so a lot of our attendees, I'm sure that they're experiencing some form of that. In your story, it was by choice. And a lot of our listeners right now have been forced because of the economy and the pandemic of just, hey, we got to reshift and figure out something else. And as they're working from home, or they're trying to figure things out at home, they're noticing that personal care, self-development are even more important now than just kind of that day-to-day rut that they're going through at their jobs.
Yeah, you know what? I think those decisions, I don't know if it was so much wisdom or just kind of a reaction, but I think when you're younger, it's a little easier to make those decisions because that's your decision alone, right? Today, I'm married, right? I've got a family that I support. I have a mortgage. It wouldn't be easy for me to say, you know what, I'm going to change my career path tomorrow.
Right.
So I think I did have a little bit of kind of foresight into thinking that, look, if I don't do this now, I'll never be able to do it later. And it wasn't an easy decision. It took several months of kind of, I think, self-reflection. But it's not to say that, working in public accounting is not a fantastic career. It just, at that time for me, my own personal situation, in order for you to be successful in that public sector accounting experience, you really have to devote your time and energy to it. And it has to be your primary focus. At least that's my personal perspective of it from the time that I worked in public accounting. And if you don't give 100%, you will not be successful.
Yeah, it's kind of a funny note too. Every, a dead giveaway with you, Frank, of I guess not working the accountant part of it as much is you're not wearing glasses. Almost every accountant that I meet wears glasses because they're stuck in front of a computer a lot.
Well, I did gain a little weight after college. It's not the same lifestyle, right? It's not the same days when you park in the parking lot and you have to walk all the way to upper campus and you're walking 2-3 miles a day. My office is, while it's pretty good size, I have a hard time getting 10,000 steps a day today.
So you shifted over then. So you went, okay, let's go public service. You want to be part of the community. You want to make an impact. How different is that? I mean, when you're going from private sector to public, and I would assume that you got more pairs of eyes on you now because you're working on behalf of the public.
Yeah, I'll tell you, it's a completely different job. When you work in public accounting, you're really constrained on your time. So as a public accountant, your firm is going out and they're selling services to a private enterprise. So you have billable hours. So it was not unusual where you would get an assignment and your manager would say, you have to accomplish this task and you have 120 hours to complete the task. And if it takes you 140 hours, sometimes there was, I would say, pressure to eat those 20 hours and not bill because that manager doesn't want to go back to the client and say, oh, guess what? I've got to add an additional $2,000 to the engagement. They don't want to hear that, right?
Yeah.
So now when you work in the public sector, it's a little different because when you come in, you're not constrained by billable hours. They actually hire you and all of your time can be spent on a particular assignment. So when I came to the county, my first job, I worked for the county auditor controller, and I provided accounting services to the public finance department of the county. So the county, as like cities and counties and governments, oftentimes they issue debt. So when you issue debt, you have a trustee that manages the bond proceeds, and you have certain reporting requirements, and you have accounting requirements. So 40 hours a week when I came in, I would reconcile all of the bank statements, I would interact with the trustee, I would fill out the compliance reports, and then I would do just the accounting for all of the construction bonds and things that happened. So it was in some ways liberating in that I didn't have an artificial timeline in terms of when I had to complete it. If I needed to work overtime, I did. If I didn't, I had a couple extra hours. I didn't feel as much pressure. And in some ways, I really enjoyed that aspect of it because it's not unusual. You can imagine in the private sector, if you really want to get a client, you may underbill or you may underbid a job, right? And then there's incredible pressure from above to fit within the size of the job that you bid. Otherwise, your company doesn't make money. So in the public sector, you don't have those kinds of requirements. They own all of your time, and you spend as much time as it takes to do the work, and you're not under that kind of artificial pressure. So I like that aspect of it.
Yeah, it's amazing just how much stuff is going on behind the scenes, and most people won't know that. And I love the fact that, you're sharing just what the job entails, and there's just so much as far as public services involved that there's many different things that you can do to help that community, to help the county out, to help the city out. It's amazing.
Yeah, in fact, if I think about my career, I also work for the waste management department in the county. So they run all of the Orange County landfills, right? And we do a fantastic job because you don't ever hear too many complaints about the landfill system. But if you live in Orange County, at least where I live, I'm paying $35 every 3 months for somebody to pick up trash in front of my house. I mean, I don't know about you, but I wouldn't pick up somebody's trash for $35 for 90 days, right? But the county does a fantastic job of managing our landfill systems efficiently so that people don't smell it, right? That it's being done at a low cost. So when I think about that kind of value that I provide to Orange County residents, I'm happy to know that I was a part of that. So I also work for John Wayne Airport. Many residents may not know that the county runs the airport in Orange County. So we run airports, we run landfills, we manage debt. So there's a role in all of that for people that have accounting degrees. And it's a fantastic place to enter the workplace because when you're an accountant, the ability to manage the dollars, the budget, and do it in an organized way and provide that value to the managers who are making policy decisions and operational decisions, there was always a value in that. And I felt that having an accounting degree, I could insert myself into different roles within multiple different kind of operational departments within the county. And that's how I grew my career.
Wow. Yeah. And that's, something that you got to take into account too, of having skills that are transferable, building transferable skills. And like you mentioned too, when you tie that in with what you said of, using the programs back at the university, the mentorship, the public speaking, how to work as a team, all that stuff comes into play when you're now have the skill set and then you're putting the mindset together and now you're able to advance further. So I love that stuff. So now that you're working, what are things that with the pandemic happening, how did you have to shift or adjust certain things in the way you work or the way you have to reach out to the other departments that you're overseeing?
Yeah. No, I would say the pandemic has really been an incredible challenge, not only to myself, but all public employees, because it's one of the few times that, at least in my 25-year career, where county government is front and center. and the people have an expectation of an immediate service, whether they want to get COVID tested or there's an issue with hospital bed capacity, whatever it is that people want, they want it now and they want it immediately. And I think that it's been an incredible challenge, not only in terms of the fact that we're doing this response at a time when sales taxes and other economic activity have fallen off the cliff. So the county demand for services from the public has grown, but our revenues have declined. So it's a situation where you're being asked to do more with less. And there's, as you can imagine, a lot of anxiety, stress, and stakeholder demands for resources. So I would say that whatever skill that I've developed in terms of being very diplomatic and seeking to understand what is the root of the frustration from people that may not have very nice things to say about you, all of those skills are really important, because ultimately you have to be able to communicate to people as to why you're not able to do something that they want, or why it is that we're doing something in a certain way. Because I think what we've discovered in the pandemic is that everyone has a different view of how severe COVID is or what the appropriate response should be. And trying to communicate with all of those various stakeholders and trying to knit one central theme of what is happening and how we're responding. It's an incredible challenge, and I don't know that I have succeeded in all aspects, but I know that it's taken every bit of the skills and experience that I've developed over my career to try to manage it as best as I can. So I can't stand before you and tell you that we're a complete success, but what I can say is that it's incredibly challenging, and that I believe that my team and my staff, we've stepped up and we've provided what I think is a good response, but certainly we can always do better.
Yeah, I'm thinking of it's sort of an unintended consequence of what's about to happen, is that if you have these departments and you're like you said, right, you're running with a skeleton crew, minimal resources, and they're still able to get the work done. When everything starts to clear back up again and open up again, might have to look into the departments maybe not needing that much of a budget.
Yeah, no, it's true, and things are really going to change. I think this is the case not only for the county government, but all private employers. Is currently we have 40% of our workforce that is telecommuting. And I think that once the pandemic is over, I think there'll be a certain percentage that continue to telecommute. And the county before, I would say we had less than 5% of our employees that telecommuted. And I think that it'll be a part of how we operate in the future, which means then that we'll need less lease space, right? We may start sharing cubicles and offices. And what we'll likely do is we will reduce our I would say our infrastructure expenses, because we're going to likely utilize more distance working, more of our IT technology, and less of our physical infrastructure. So it's going to change, I think, how large employers really look at the future of how they operate. And to a certain extent, I find some positives in it, because I know a lot of the millennials and the younger people that are coming out of university, they're looking for work flexibility. And I think we're going to be able to provide that, because we've had to adapt during the crisis.
Excellent answer. And we're at the halfway point right now. I just want to tell you, Frank, you're doing a great job. Let me fire off some of these questions that are pouring in here.
Right.
So one of them is, what does a day look like for you, before pandemic, now after, post-pandemic?
So, really, I divide myself really into two halves. 50% of my time really is making sure that broad initiatives in the county are moving forward. So things like, like mental health issues have been a big issue, not only in Los Angeles, but in Orange County, within the Southern California communities. The number of homeless individuals that have substance use and mental health issues. So that is something that is ongoing regardless of the pandemic. So that's an issue that we're working on. We're also working on we're building a new civic center in Orange County. We are also have recently built out our animal care system. We're growing our library system. So there are kind of initiatives that we're working on that I need to meet with my team and ensure that the milestones are being met, that we're working in appropriate timeline, that they have the resources that they need, and helping them resolve issues that come up. So that's about half of my time is working on kind of problem solving and making sure operationally we're on the right path. The other half of my time generally is dealing with issues that come up where my staff need direction. And so generally what that means is that we have 18,000 employees in the county, and every single day there are things that we do fantastic and there are things that we do that create issues where perhaps there is a road that needs construction, or there is a sewer that went out, or there's something that has happened that requires attention. And I work with my departments in resolving kind of the media issues, communicating with my elected board members, communicating with stakeholders, things that could become newsworthy or have significant consequence if not managed well immediately. So half of it is problem solving, half of it is making sure that things that are on a path continue to stay on a path. So I think part of what's important for an executive is really to kind of divide the pie of what is work, what you delegate, what you handle yourself, and kind of managing that day to day.
Are you, I mean, the meetings that you do have, are you shortening them even more? Or is it like how you take 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there? Is it half an hour?
You know, it depends on how important or significant the issue is. Generally, if it's something that I can manage in 5 to 10 minutes, I'll just do it myself, or I'll do a short phone call with somebody that I signed the work to. But if it's something that I don't have enough familiarity with, or it's complex, then what I'll do is I'll call a meeting and I'll sit down with generally 2 to 3 people and we'll discuss the issue and we'll make a decision together.
Okay, good. I got this other question here. So, okay, I have an accounting degree. I want to be in the public sector. What do I do?
Well, fantastic. So I think a very common way to enter the workplace is through on-campus interviews. And I know that our county participates in on-campus interviews at various universities, but that is one kind of straightforward way. The other way to do it is by looking at our website. So our #1 most frequently visited website within the County of Orange, www.ocgov.com. It's the employment page. All of our jobs are posted online, and cities have those kinds of postings as well. So what I would say is, instead of looking at kind of, there's like consolidator websites like governmentjobs.com, but sometimes those recruitments are kind of out of date. If you really wanted to enter the workforce and work in government, what I would say is, don't necessarily narrow your interest to, oh, I've got to have this one job in an accounting field within this city or within the County of Orange. What I would say is, it's easier to move around once you get into the organization. Government jobs, it's frustrating and it's a point of embarrassment, but it takes time and persistence to get a job in government, because when we open a job, we end up with, it's not uncommon to have 1,000 applicants. And then now it takes somebody to review all those applications. And it's not like the private sector where it's a beauty contest. You like somebody, you just hire them. In the public sector, you have to follow standardized rules. Everyone's got to be given equal opportunity. So somebody has to review every one of those applications, identify who's qualified, who isn't, and then they've got to score those applications. And then you bring them in for an interview, and then there could be a second interview. So a public sector job, it's a test of persistence, and it can take up to 6 months. Like particularly if you want to work for a job that's available in the district attorney, probation, sheriff, there's a background process. Just the background alone can take 3 months. So it depends on the job that you're looking for, but don't give up. Persistence is important. And look on our websites. That's generally the best way to identify. And like on the county website, you can actually log in, create a profile, identify the types of jobs that you're interested in. And as those jobs come up, they will send you an email. And I think many other counties and cities have similar type of kind of automated systems. So what I would encourage is there's 34 cities in Orange County. There's one county of Orange, and there's about 15 different special districts. Get onto those websites, fill out those surveys, and get yourself set up. And that's probably the best way.
Okay, let's take it a step further now. So, all right, I applied. I'm going in for an interview. What are things that that you're looking for that kind of stand out, right, to get a leg up versus the competition?
So if you're applying for a job in my office and you're going to come in under finance, we're going to not only look at your resume and ask you some very general oral questions. We're also going to do a testing component. You're going to sit in front of a computer. You're going to work on some spreadsheets. You're also going to be given a case study, and you're going to do some financial analysis on it. And we're going to look at the quality of your writing, the quality of your analytical skills, and your ability to do some Excel or spreadsheeting type of work. So we're looking for actual practical skills. So that should be something that you should expect. And I think one of the challenges that we've had generally is that a lot of the younger people that are coming into the county seem not to be able to have as developed written skills as possible. So that's something that we're always looking for, ability to write and communicate.
And, you know, I love that you mentioned things like that, because, you know, you're saying, you know, they're going to be put under pressure right up front. Hey, demonstrate your ability. Let me see if you're able to do this. What are things that someone can do then to kind of move around that space in a high stress situation?
You know, what I would say is that certainly being prepared reduces some anxiety. So what I would say is it's normal to expect that in a government, right? If we just get to the nuts and bolts of how are you successful in an interview? I've interviewed hundreds of people in my career, and it's always surprising that we would spend time to write out a job flyer that says, this is the scope of the duties that we're looking for you to accomplish if you get this job. So if we interview you, guess what? I'm going to ask you specifically, what experience do you have in these scopes? And if you don't have experience, what skills do you have or other experience that might be tangential to that would indicate to us that even if you didn't have that direct experience, that you would be successful because you've had similar like experiences. So one kind of basic tool that I would say is read that job flyer, compare it to your history, and be prepared to explain your actual professional experience and or your educational background or personal skills that lend itself to you being successful in accomplishing those scope items. So as a government employer, since you have to follow these fairly strict rules, we're going to ask you questions that are on the flyer. So it's almost like having an open book test. You already know the questions that we're going to ask you.
Mm-hmm. And this is more of a personal question that I have for you, because, you know, I was having this discussion with my wife as well of, you have a lot of senior leadership positions, and, you know, everybody's fighting for the jobs at the bottom. How frequent and how often are people still, they might not have that strong of a resume, that are still giving it a shot and saying, you know what, let me go for that position that's a little bit higher than my pay grade currently? Yeah.
You know what? I think it really is about attitude. Attitude is really important. When I look to make a hiring decision into a senior leadership role, generally everyone that comes through my front door is technically qualified. Because if you're not, you're already you know,
yeah,
you're already separated, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now you're in my front door. I'm not necessarily looking for somebody who just has the best technical ability. Am I going to be able to work with you? Are you a person of good character? Can I trust you? If I ask you to do something difficult, do you have diplomacy and tact? Because oftentimes, if you're in a senior position, you're having to say no, right? You're having to make decisions that impact negatively certain stakeholders and positively other stakeholders.
Mm-hmm.
Can you deliver the tough message of no? And then can you communicate why you made certain decisions so that generally people understand why you did something. Even if they disagree with you, they're less likely to attack you.
Yeah.
So I'm looking for those soft skills, right? So would I rather have somebody who had 2 years of additional experience in a particular technical field, or do I want somebody who is fantastic interpersonally that I'm going to be able to work with and get along with? Because guess what? When I make a hiring decision, it's not for 2 years. I'm hoping this person sticks around for at least 5 years. So they're going to build their operational experience. They're going to grow their skills, but good character, honesty, easy to work with, those things I can't oversell that enough. It's so important. And here's what I say, like this will come across kind of odd, is what I've noticed is people generally hire people that they want to be friends with. And it doesn't mean that you're hiring your best friends, but what I'm saying is if you like somebody, you're more likely to hire them. Right? So be likable.
Right. Yeah. And I was going to mention that too, of like having that, likability factor. Because a lot of students and alum will say, well, what classes can I take? Or, what other things can I polish? And it's like, well, it's that ability to be likable, right? And you have a conversation with somebody. And I always think of, saying, look, can I invite this person to a barbecue afterwards?
Okay.
And be able to hang out with them still for a bit. If you can't do that, then.
I mean, that's the reality, right? We're all human beings. So if you're interviewing 20 people, and let's say 10 of them just come across as being, let's say, less likable, and the 10 are more likable, if they're all qualified, which pool are you going to choose from?
Right. Yeah, makes sense. Want to shift gears real quickly as we start to wrap up. So, I noticed that, we got snowboarding and, scuba diving. How did you even get into things like that?
When I was in college, I had a part-time job most of my college career at a company called REI. So they sell outdoor equipment. So when you're 19, 20 years old and you're working at REI, what do? I mean, you're going backpacking, snowboarding, camping, and you're hanging out with your coworkers. And it was really a fantastic place to work. But, from early on, I was involved in Boy Scouts. So we did a lot of camping. I worked at REI. So it was always kind of a part of who I was. When I was in high school, I was on the swim team. I played high school water polo. So I've always kind of been involved in outdoor things. And I just wish I had more time to do those things today. But it's really important not to lose yourself in your work. And I think if I didn't have some work-life balance in my life, I would have a much more difficult time dealing with the stress of work. So I would say that it also makes you more successful, because if you have an ability to kind of release some of that stress, for people that exercise a lot, you get kind of a high, right? Like if I go to the gym and I work out for an hour or two really aggressively, I feel so much better mentally walking out of the gym than I did when I came into it, even though it's so hard to get into the gym. I'm certainly not a spokesperson for exercising, because I can't do it as much as I want, but I always feel better about it. And it's the same way for whether I go scuba diving or snowboarding. You have to balance your life, and don't lose sight of that as you pursue your professional career.
Great answer. Final question as we start to wrap things up here. I know family is very important for you. As you start to kind of move up the ranks and your job title and your responsibilities start to increase, how important is that conversation with your family of, with your public service obligations and also, being a husband and a father?
It's not easy, and I can't say that in the last several years I've done a good job of balancing. I've lost a little bit of that balance, particularly with the pandemic. I was working generally like 70 hours a week for a period of a couple of months, from like March through like end of June. like 60 hours was low, like 70 hours was to 80 hours was not uncommon. So I completely lost that work-life balance. It's getting better today. But what I would say is that if your spouse and your family are not part of those decisions and you're not communicating to them as to why you can't be there for dinner and you're not engaging with them the way that you engage with other stakeholders at work, you're not going to be successful. So that balance is really important. And I haven't done as good a job in that over the last couple of months, but you also have to have enough self-reflection and understanding to know when you're not balanced. So that's something that I have to recommit to. So, yeah.
Thank you for the honesty. You know, that's something that, you know, as you see someone in your position and you see the resume and you see the accomplishments and the accolades, those are things that we don't really have a chance to really talk about. So I appreciate you being transparent and honest about just, hey, there's certain sacrifices that have to take place in order to advance in another area, and you know, there's some leeway. So there's final 3 questions I'm going to ask you here, and we kind of covered some of these already. First one is, it says, what classes would you recommend beyond accounting to become an outstanding job candidate in the public sector? Law, communication studies, criminal justice, etc.
Well, what I would say is certainly I would recommend taking classes in like writing classes where you can take concepts, ideas, and communicate that in a written form. Being able to do that succinctly and effectively is a really important skill, because when you're at work, you're always going to be on email. You're always going to be writing memos and letters, and being able to communicate well is an important skill. And that's something that I'm not the best writer in the world, but it is a skill that is really underdeveloped in a lot of the younger people. So you're a major in accounting. Well, you're going to get all of your math and financial skills. That's not going to be what holds you back. But you have to round out your abilities. So I think part of it, to answer your question, is look at yourself. What are you weak in? If you're shy, you have to work on that, because you're not going to be as successful promoting if you are uncomfortable in a meeting, if you're uncomfortable expressing ideas that might be a little bit controversial, if you don't have the tact or the ability to communicate things that are difficult, you're going to struggle more. So I would say self-evaluation, and then filling in those classes that help you build out those skills that you don't have a natural ability for.
Perfect. As we're running short on time here, Frank, we're gonna have to do kind of like a quick 30-second, maybe a minute response here. Next question says, to move upward in government positions, do you feel for an accounting that has a CPA or an MPA would be the best option to advance?
Well, I would say CPA, because when you're right in university, that's the right time to get CPA, because all of the test questions are related to what you learn in university. As a working accountant, you'll never pass your CPA later. You got to do it the first year out of college, or you won't do it. So knock that out first.
All right. Next one is, what resources were you able to use after graduating from CSULB to find positions in the public accounting field and the public sector?
Well, not really. I didn't use any of that, because I came into my job as an accountant, and then I just kind of grew in the county, and I transitioned from accountant to budget analyst, and from budget analyst to administrative jobs, and then I ended up as a CFO.
All right. Last one here. How can I get an accounting degree with a degree in liberal arts?
Well, I think that's still okay. I mean, that's probably a question better for the university, but as I recall, back when I went to university, you had to have certain minimum requirements. You have to take certain accounting classes and have certain business classes to get into upper division accounting. But today, my guess is you can't even enroll in an upper division accounting class if you're not enrolled into the business school. So if you're liberal arts, you probably have to get enrolled into the business school first.
Awesome. And, you know, just a quick recap of all the stuff that we talked about. We had a great conversation. I wish it was, you know, another 2-3 hours if you can go on all day. So we talked about just, you know, your experience first in the university of starting off and really using the resources and you know, doing more than just taking a class, right? We talked about that. You know, I love the fact that you were able to share with us a little bit more about just that hiring process and what are the things that you're looking for to start reaching the higher levels up. And then mentioning, you know, stories about, you know, how it impacts your family and other, you know, personal time as well. And, you know, for those that paid attention, scuba diving, take some scuba diving class. You might have an interview with Frank in the ocean somewhere. So I'm going to hand things over now to Ricky as we wrap up. Frank, I want to say, you know, I had a pleasure in being able to talk to you today, and, you know, look forward to future conversations with you.
Thank you so much.
Hi, Frank. Thanks, Vince. That was absolutely fantastic. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. I invite you all to visit our website, the csulb.edu/alumni, to learn more about future 49er industry chats and to follow us on social media at CSULB alumni. Frank, just one last question. You mentioned a website. Is it ocgov.com?
Correct.
That's correct.
ocgov.com.
GOV, got it. Perfect. And I put that over in the chat area. So thanks again, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, Frank. That was really fantastic.